Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you all doing? It's Wednesday. Good morning, good morning. Yesterday was a long day, my friends. Yesterday was a long day. I'll tell you why in a bit. But good morning. Really good to see you. How do I sound? I know I checked the video out yesterday. Thank you, Azario. It sounds really good. The guy himself doesn't sound good, but the picking up by the microphone does sound really good. Thank you very much for that. You've changed our show, Azario. Thank you, bud. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Mayor. How are you and the family today? I'm thinking about you a lot since our messages yesterday. Just give me the thumbs up if it's okay for me to kind of let people know what's going on. But I'm really glad you made it, and I'm glad to see you, and happy to chat some more if you want. Zario, good morning, Yellowhead Yacht Club. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Nice to see you all. How's the picture? How's the streaming? Not bad. How's the audio? We're getting there. That's good. That's good. Good morning, Padge. Morning to Scott and Azario. And Prairie. Good morning, Prairie. How are you? Where were you last week? May I ask? You just sleeping in? Hanging out? I kind of missed you. There was at least a few episodes where I didn't see you. So nice to see you that you're back there, Prairie. Good morning. Oh, look at this. Motown. Good morning, everyone. You're loud and clear from here. I'm ready for another great show. Is that all you're ready for, Motown? Is that all you're ready for? How about happy birthday to you? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Motown. Happy birthday to you. Good morning, Motown. I hope you have a great birthday. I hope your family spoils you. I hope you can relax and chill. I hope today's a good day for you, buddy. And that's what happens. If you let me know it's your birthday, I might say hi. But good morning, Motown. Oh, wow. Lots of chats already. Doing well. Morning, John. Good morning, Plaid family. There you go, John. Thank you. And the Yellowhead Yacht Club. I think that's a good name. I think it's a really good name. The Plaid family. Welcome all. And welcome, John. This will be a nice episode. I think you'll enjoy yourself. You're going to hear from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Canadians plus me. It'll be a big show. Hope you enjoy it, John. Morning, Azario to Padge. Audio and vid is good. Big improvement going back to StreamYard. I believe so. Yeah, Restream. We were trying to save a couple dollars. It was a couple dollars cheaper. But the straw that broke the camel's back for me is they lost the video. The Kelly video from Friday, they lost it. They don't even know how. So can't risk that. We had to use a lower quality because of that. So, and then of course the stream didn't look great and there's other problems. So we moved to StreamYard back. We moved back to StreamYard. And good morning to Prairie. And then of course, happy birthday to Motown from Prairie and morning Patch from Prairie. And thank you so much from Motown. I'm really, really glad you're enjoying this. And Patch is saying good morning to John. Welcome to the Plaid family, everyone. Well, I think you guys are telling me that you're enjoying the show. You guys keep showing up. You know, cause and effect. If you keep showing up, I'm going to keep doing it. But this is the last week for the morning one. Again, we're going to replay, so there'll still be a morning show. Don't worry. If you like the morning show and you like saying hi and good morning, that will still happen. I'll still do that. I'll just replay the guest or whatever the show was from the previous night for you. HBD. What's HBD? Hudson Bay discount? What's HBD? Try and figure this out. I don't got it, Azario. I should probably know it, but not right now. Drawing a blank. HBD. Anybody else got a guess? I don't want to go anywhere dirty. I certainly could. I certainly could. Ask Patch if I wanted to. I could. But yeah. So good morning. So we have our first guest in 5 minutes. How about I take you through the list? We have Josh Udall. I hope I'm getting that right. But Josh, he's from the Elevate podcast out in Nova Scotia. Look at that. Happy birthday from Perry. And he's going to be joining us. He's got a wickedly cool podcast. If you go check him out, he does, I think, one a week or so. And he gets into the same type of subjects as we do. And with the wildfires and other things going out in Nova Scotia, it's going to be great to hear from someone on the ground there. And then for Quebec, we have our good friend Gov Corrupt. So he's going to be giving us the lowdown en anglais, not en français. So we'll be getting it all in English from Quebec. And I guess for the people out west, there you go. You get to chat with somebody from Quebec. They ain't so bad. They have similar problems as we do. Government, overstep, get into your lives, children. They got the same issues that we got. So we'll be hearing from him. And I love how my chat is working today, and my chat manager, their Patch. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much for that. Then we'll be going to Ontario as we head west. We'll be seeing Azario. We know he's here. Yay. And Tammy Croft. She's in our chat a lot. She's got a great story. So we're going to get to hear from her. Let us know what's going on in Ontario. I hope you got your notes ready there, Azario. Then we'll be going west further to Manitoba. We'll be meeting Sundance Construction. Twitter friend, follower, very active, business owner. And we'll be hearing from her. Then we'll also hear from Zahena, the talent behind the music for our intro, outro. Zahena. We'll be hearing directly from him. I'm really excited about that because it's my first time speaking to him. I've made a lot of friends through keyboard. So texting, messages like Motown. Good friend, never met even on video. So Zahena, I'll be meeting him for the first time. So that'll be exciting. And then we'll be heading more west, and we get Saskatchewan. In Saskatchewan, we've got Zach Schmidt from the Schmidt House podcast. So we got another podcaster in Saskatchewan who's going to be joining us and saying hello and giving us a lowdown on Saskatchewan. Then we also have Alberta. Now, folks, I know it's a small fib. It's small fib. I didn't get anybody in BC. So we're coast to almost coast today. It's the time. I had 4 people that said, yeah, but it's early. It's very early for them. So you can expect next week when we move to the afternoons, we'll have a full slate then. But what we'll likely do is we'll just hang out with Alberta a little bit longer, where we have Joe Rampart. So you got to meet him yesterday, but he's going to show back up and give us a quick update on what's going on in the Edmonton area. And then we have Andy Lee from the Real Andy Lee Show. So another show we get to hang out with. So she'll be hanging out and saying, here's what it looks like in Calgary and here's what's going on. So we're very excited to have her as well. So we're 2 minutes away from our first guest. However, he's here. I can see him. So what I'm going to do is I might bring him in early, do the hello, because I've yet to meet Josh. So why don't we go ahead, and I can see him. He's getting ready. He's getting himself centered. And I'm going to click one button here and one button here. And hi, Josh.
How you doing, sir? How you holding up?
I'm good. But we only call people with guns sir around here. So Jay works. Good morning. How are you?
Not too bad. How you holding up over there?
I'm holding up here nice and bright and early. The sun's coming up a little bit early in the morning for you. Like you're bright and early as well. But yeah, we're doing great here. The wildfires have died down. We've had some rain. It's really helped a lot. You can see things are getting green now back there.
Nice.
But yeah, it's going good. And welcome, Josh. You are officially the first guest of the first episode of Coast to Almost Coast, because we didn't get BC.
Yeah. BC tends to kind of hold out a lot on different things, don't they? So
they do. Yeah, they do, don't they? That's actually a good point. I like that. But yeah, so welcome, Josh. My guests, my audience may know you, actually, because when I was searching around for podcasts, I found yours pretty quickly. I see that they maybe haven't let you back on Twitter yet, though.
Oh, yeah. So,
I'd love to know why.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually don't really have much of a presence on Twitter, period. We've kind of mainly focused on kind of TikTok, YouTube, a little bit of Instagram. So we tried to kind of foray into Twitter a little bit, but we just had to get it like half focused in terms of where we're going to kind of, put our energy. And so eventually we'll foray into Twitter and get an idea of what's going on there. But as of right now, it's an account with 13 followers and a handful of tweets. So
But what got you banned or suspended? Because it looked like I couldn't check your account out.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Maybe it's just for too long. You haven't used it and they just
Yeah,
shut it down.
that's news to me. Well, thanks for telling me.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, these guys are awesome. They're still banned under Elon. It must be good. But no, it's just a time thing.
Yeah.
Why don't we let everybody know who you are, Josh? Because I've watched your show, and by the way, your show is pretty cool. I like how you have it set up. You got your audio. You guys are clearly, you know what you're doing. But the subject matter is what really excites me. So let's
Mhm.
go ahead and let everybody know who you are, and let's go ahead and talk about what's going on in Nova Scotia, so that Canadians can understand what's unique and happening over there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a co-host of the Elliott Podcast, which is a show kind of focused on mainly business and politics now. We took a bit of a pivot last year when we were just mainly focused on like business things and design and marketing. And then things kept getting crazier in our political landscape. And we couldn't just sit back and say nothing anymore.
Yeah.
And then so we kind of like, hit our passion for politics and started talking about these things a little bit more. And we like to think of ourselves like we're not heavy right. We try to we tend more like centrist on a lot of things.
Hmm.
But it's funny when you go against the overall uh, trend of the day, all of a sudden you're far right. So that's what people kind of know us as at this point. And that's what we do. And we're kind of we focus on now on like issues that are happening within the province, within our city, as well as the country, and then eventually we'll touch on things like Sleepy Joe Biden down south. So uh, that's kind of what we're doing. We're focused on. We do it. We do a show twice a week.
Well, I'm kind of worried about sandbags now. I think there might be an attack on sandbags because they're taking out the president now. So, Sleepy Joe, watch out for those sandbags. They jump out at you, so you got to be careful.
Do
And
that.
you're not wrong when you get into the political scape and you start talking about stuff. If you put a question mark at the end of a sentence, you're far right.
Yeah.
As soon as you've asked a question, you're far right.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the world of that. All right. Okay, cool. So unfortunately, it sounds like you guys have some wildfires still going on over there, and there might be some action on that front. We just got rid of ours, so go ahead and tell us what happened. What's happening to you guys?
Yeah, so we just kind of had a very dry season. Like usually April is known as the month where it's just gray for the whole month and it's terrible. Everyone's depressed. But it was like unseasonably very warm. And things were very dry. Then all of a sudden things started catching fire. One down in Shelburne, which is in southern Nova Scotia, and then one that was closer to the city here in Halifax, it was only about maybe 15, 20 clicks outside the city. That was getting worse and worse. I had a lot of my friends and connections to the show who had to evacuate their homes, who were out for over a week. And it got really ugly because we just haven't really had to fight wildfires like that ever in this province. And so we just, again, we're a province that lacks resources in the first place, and this one didn't help. Essentially what happened is they essentially sent all the paid firefighters, from my understanding, to go fight the fires. And it was the volunteer firefighters that filled in their place to take care of the regular stuff that was happening in the city. So it was just everyone is really stretched. And then the rain came, and it's coming. It's still coming. It's been raining for the past 4 or 5 days. So things are dissipating and things are contained, and people are starting to be able to go back to their homes. At least the ones who are fortunate enough to be able to go back to a home. Those who lost things, it's terrible to see and hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then also having to deal with insurance and all that is kind of a gong show at the moment. We talked about it on our show the other night, where we learned from a real estate agent that a lot of insurance companies here in the city are now halting any new policies or any renewals of any properties that are within 50-kilometer radius of the fires. So if you just bought a new house, you could be at risk of losing your mortgage and not getting your home.
Right.
So it's kind of it's a messy situation at the moment, but things are slowly getting better. The fires have dissipated. So yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that there would be an insurance issue, but it kind of makes sense. So, is the government stepped up and helped at all? Are they assisting with the fire, assisting people who had to be evacuated?
Yeah, for the best of my knowledge, they've done a decent job. There was actually recently a retired firefighter that came out on TikTok and kind of blasted the Houston government here, who was our premier, they didn't do enough to fight the fires. Apparently, a lot of from this man's perspective, we haven't been able to verify a lot of what he said, but he said him and a group of retired firefighters really kind of put their hand up. Hey, we want to help. Even figuring out resourcing and strategy and planning. And he was told that the government told him that thank you, but no thanks. We're going to do this on our own. So he kind of blasted the government for not doing everything in their power to take care of these wildfires, especially when we were so short on resources. So it was, that's probably the drama that's come out. But for the most part, it seemed like, Scotians really came together, band together, and got that figured out. So happy to hear that.
That's what Canadians do. That's what we did here in Alberta as well. Now, out here, we were concerned about how some of the fires were starting because we didn't have storms or lightning and stuff like that. So are you guys looking into it as well? Do you know of any arson, any controlled burns that got out of control, anything like that?
That's pretty much from what our understanding is. That's exactly what started it. Was that there's obviously there's rumors, but for the most part, it wasn't just like, hey, something just caught fire. It was like there's something along the lines of a man lighting some tires on fire that eventually got out of control. So I'm not under. I haven't heard of like intentional burns that started, but it was definitely people who were just weren't exactly thinking and weren't taking care of the fires that they were burning, and eventually those are the ones that kind of spun out of control.
That's interesting. Now, do you normally have a wildfire season? Like in Alberta, it's about every 4 years, kind of aligning with our elections, that we have wildfire seasons. How about you?
Yeah, no, this was like we have wildfires, but they're always very controlled, and they get
Hmm.
taken care of. This was the first one that like really was the first of, at least from my understanding, I've lived here for about 12 years now,
Hmm.
where it spun out of control the way it did. When you're seeing a haze over the city and smoke, and all you can smell is smoke when you go outside,
Yep.
and there was air quality warnings for a couple days. Myself, I have a history with asthma, and like I was having coughing fits. I couldn't go outside myself. So it was it was the worst I've seen, and that I've heard in the past 25 years. So
Yeah, I spent some time in Halifax. I was working for Nova Scotia Power. I'm a software guy. So I was
mm,
there in 1999 because I was there helping make sure your year 2000 worked. 'Cause and you
nice.
still have power, so I guess my code did its
Oh,
job.
yeah.
But, when I was there was never anything like wildfires. That wasn't even a concern. It wasn't something that we talked about. But what we've noticed this year in Alberta, we had a really big season. But our neighbors had a big season, BC, Saskatchewan, and we also noticed Manitoba and Ontario's on fire, and Quebec is the worst one yet. They're putting a bunch of smoke to the States. Now, you guys too. Uh, Lots of unknown starts this year,
Hmm.
man, coast to coast. That's
Yep.
fun. That's
Yep.
fun. So it might give us a good year of looking into wondering how did all this start.
Yeah.
To my friends who've shown me the videos already of the helicopter dropping fire, okay, folks, I want to just highlight that's called a control burn, and they do things like that in order to burn the fuel in front of a fire if the wind shifts. So my father was a forest firefighter. There is techniques that require you to start fires in order to fight a fire. Could be where the whole fight fire with fire comes from, folks. So there is a thing. And trust me that any video of a helicopter doing that was supplied by the government for the government. So unless you have your drones up there and you're catching stuff, any video you send me about a fire starting from helicopters, those are on purpose. That's not the government starting a conspiracy. I just want to put it out there because I got like 8 of those videos sent to me. I I'm a pilot. I understand some of the stuff, and it's not to be worried about. All right, it looks like we have 5 more minutes. So tell us about your premier. Who is he? What party? And what do you guys think about him so far?
Yeah, great question. So I'll speak from a general perspective, then I might get more personal about the time. But yeah, Tim Houston, he's a leader of the Conservative Party here in Nova Scotia. He just got elected probably coming up on 2 years ago now. And he he did his best to really try to, his campaign strategy was actually to disassociate with the federal conservatives,
Okay.
because I'll be honest, like when it comes to Tim Houston and his policies, he's more of a liberal in conservative clothing. So he's very big on like government spending and like,
Oh crap. Okay.
for the most part, he's like, it's a thoughtful spending, but it's still like, it's like, we're going to go into debt and we're going to do it. It's for some, obviously healthcare is a gong show out here at the moment. So that was really what his campaign promise was.
Hmm.
And it's funny how leading up to, I think it was 2 days before the election, it showed all the ambulances that were not able to be used because we didn't have enough EMS. And so that was like what got him over the hump as to be voted in. It was the fact like I'm here. His promise was I'm gonna fix healthcare, which that was probably the worst thing he could have said, because there's going to be no quick fix for healthcare. So he's already kind of facing the repercussions of those promises. He's doing his best. I think his government's doing his best at the moment. They've made some good moves to try and remedy a couple of like the strain in our system. But it's a solution you're not going to see within 3, 4, 5 years. It's going to be a 15, 20-year solution to undo what the issues are. But overall, they're performing pretty well. He's just running into a couple different things at the moment. One thing, support staff here in the province, so teachers, so the support staff for teachers, so people dealing with like the special needs kids are up for a contract renewal, and they are on strike, and that's been getting a lot of play here, and he's just like, this is where his conservative side comes out. He's like, we don't have any money for you. We're trying to take care of healthcare. We don't have anything left. I'm sorry, that's kind of coming out. But the one thing that's coming out with Tim Houston lately is he's not been scared to go after Trudeau and the federal liberals.
Well, that's an easy target now for conservatives.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the big thing, he actually came out the other day. I think it was Kate McKenna was talking about how Premier Tim Houston said this after the Hurricane Fiona last September. It kind of ravaged our province. He said, my discussions with the Prime Minister, he looked me in the eye at one point and said, Nova Scotia didn't fill out the proper forms, and that's why support didn't come as quickly. And so he just like flamed Trudeau in the media here, and he's been doing that multiple times. So I think he's been getting a lot of favor in that regard, because if anyone actually it can think, they can see why Trudeau is a bit of an issue. Even if you're left, I have a lot of liberal friends who are not very happy with him either. So it's just one of those scenarios. So he's coming out really fighting for the interests of Nova Scotians for the most part, at least making it seem that way. And so overall, there hasn't been anything about his government that has been disappointing, or a major disappointment. You can have disappointments here and there, but so far they're performing to what you'd hope they would do. And at least, most conservatives, can tend to be spineless at times when it comes to dealing with the other side of the aisle. So it's cool to see him come out and speak out against them when they're, doing stuff.
Absolutely. Now, what's his take on resource rights? Are you guys trying to do anything with that? Like Alberta, we're pushing back with sovereignty, and we want to have our own resource rights. You guys have oil out there. Are you in oil? Is one a major not there? No.
No, mainly just lumber out here. Oil's Newfoundland.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah. And so, it's there hasn't been any pushback in terms of resource rights as far as I'm concerned. It's more so pushing back in terms of we are trying to adapt a lot of green technology here, and the Trudeau government keeps getting in the way. There's a title company that was trying to do work here, but a lot of red tape getting in their way. They had to pack up and leave. They were about to do a lot of great work here in terms of trying to use tidal power to kind of power our grid. And they said, we have to leave. And that was another scenario where Tim Houston came out and said, the Trudeau government keeps getting in the way. They say they care about the green grid, and they still are getting in the way, not allowing us to do something. So that's obviously politics. You can tell if it was a liberal government in power here, I'm sure they would have made sure it all worked out. But you were playing politics. You got to make sure you can't give the blue any type of win, because then people are going to vote blue in the federal election.
Okay, and quickly, Ellen asked, how are the windmills? And then we'll go to Quebec.
Windmills are working okay. That's a big thing. Wind power is what we've been primarily using here, and they're trying to increase the amount that we're using. But as well as the big thing is that the experiment is we really want to get tidal power going. So thank you for your time.
No problem. And Josh, I'm going to let you throw it over to Gov Corrupt in Quebec.
All right, Gov Corrupt, have yourselves a good one. Tell us what's going on.
You too, buddy.
See ya.
Thanks, Josh. We'll see you next week, maybe. We'll get
Absolutely.
you back.
We'll talk for sure.
Sounds great. Take care, Josh.
Bye.
Bonjour, Québec. Comment ça va?
Ça va bien, et toi?
Français,
c'est pas parfait, mais c'est comme ça. I prefer to speak in English.
I think the audience would prefer that as well. So good morning, Kevin. How are you doing, buddy?
Super fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. And I see you haven't taken the accelerator off of Twitter at all. You're still pushing nice and hard, and you're getting right in there, especially with this David Johnson stuff. We don't have to get into David Johnson because he's more of a national issue, unless you want to. But happy to go into whatever you want to talk about and Quebec.
Yeah, well, I like the David Johnson issue seems to be, resonating right now. A lot of people are paying attention, which is good. But like the biggest thing to me that people are always pushing for is like, oh, we need this national inquiry. We need this. We need that. Like we need a people's inquiry. Like why do we need this? Like we already know that they're guilty. Like CISA says this is the information. These guys are guilty. So why do we have to have another inquiry and another commission and ultimately like run this on for months, if not years, and at the end of it, just to find out that oh, it's too late, nothing we can do. Like if this was a decently run country, the government would be dissolved. All laws that were passed would be null and void, and then there would be charges placed for treasonous activity, because that's ultimately what it is, right? Like when you're colluding with a foreign power to maintain power in your own country, you can't really get more treasonous than that. And it's not just the liberals. Like I'm not going to bash just one team. Like CISA says, this has been going on for at least 3 decades, so it's probably been going on for at least 6. So every single government over the span of my lifetime has been complicit in this. So the way that I see the House of Commons right now is that we have 338 criminals sitting in there, and they all should be investigated, especially when it comes to their finances. A forensic accountant take a look at who's funding them, where the money is coming from, and then pursue it on that level. Like just another inquiry, just for the government to say, we looked into ourselves and we did nothing wrong. So, but what we're going to do is set up a commission and give ourselves more power to make sure this will never happen again. Like it's absolutely ludicrous. I feel that we live in a banana republic.
I don't blame you at all, because I think the biggest thing that we're overlooking here is, you're pointing the finger at the House and saying 338 criminals, they're not doing their thing. You're frustrated that we're making a call for another inquiry instead of taking action. But we're not pointing the finger where it needs to be. The Minister of Justice, the Attorney General of Canada, the people that are supposed to be laying charges, they're doing nothing. We're not even talking about them because they're the ones that are supposed to take allegations, turn them into charges, and then bring it forward into the courts. That process seems to have been pushed on pause. We're not doing anything there. Why do you think that is? I think and what should we do about that?
Well, at the end of the day, they're all playing for the same team, right? So George Carlin said it's a big club and we're not in it, and clearly we can see that we're not in it. And then this was the same thing with the trucker inquiry, with the Nova Scotia shooting inquiry. Like it's all the same thing, and like to me, it just doesn't really make sense how a country, the people of the country, doesn't have the ability to dissolve or to fire its government based on serious allegations such as this. And David Johnson said yesterday, like, first of all, he said that there was, we don't know, there may not be, there may be this and that. And then he says, well, this is such a serious issue that you need security clearance to see it. So it went from we don't know to, oh my God, this is big, and if you see it, you can't talk about it because you're basically signing an NDA and you can't share private, like issues of national security to the public. So they want to keep it, behind lock and key, because the only reason why a government would declare something a threat to national security, it's basically to hide the fact that there's evidence of their own corruption. So they want to take that off the table, and they don't want the public to see what they've been involved in and how long it's been and really how bad it is.
Well, let's speculate just for a second and try and find a reason why we would understand the issue. So Russia's doing something, or China's doing something, or US is doing something. They want to keep us from that? No, not likely. So I think you're right. I think the information is, we're going to be really upset with our government if we know that. And that's the national security they're worried about, not from external of the borders. They're really annoyed that when we find out, we will not have it, especially after the convoy push. So I think that's the national security they're speaking about, not an external threat. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a threat to their national credibility, right? Like we already saw what they did with the trucker protests. They planted, well, this is strictly my opinion, but I think it's pretty much a lot closer to the truth than what the mainstream views are. Is they planted provocateurs into the convoy to basically destabilize it and to infiltrate it. And then they fan the flames, fuel both sides, to create like a public opinion, so it would give Justin Trudeau's government the ability to declare an emergency to shut it down. So like we're talking about all these forest fires that are burning across the country, and the only real fires that are burning are Reichstag fires. So every day there's a new Reichstag fire where they set their own fire and they blame it on the opposition just so they can move in with their own solution. So that's what they're seeing, cause and effect. You create a crisis, you get people to react, and then you ultimately have your solution. So it's just so frustrating that people can't see this. Everybody I'm sure here can see this. It's pretty obvious to anybody with more than 2 brain cells can figure this out. But the zombies that just go along with it, and like touching base quickly with the forest fire issue. Now we hear about, like, in Ontario, they're canceling recess at schools, they're canceling lunch, they're canceling extracurricular activities like your little Jimmy's soccer game. You can't do that anymore. They'd be pushing masks again, like, because apparently, a mask, it can't stop, a drywall mask. You've seen those videos, right, with the drywall going through, but it can stop smoke. And this is the same rhetoric that was been pushed in China, right? Like when you go down into China, you see all these people been wearing masks for decades due to poor air pollution. And so this is how I think it really ties in, and the infiltration of our governments by foreign powers is to basically take their ideology, or like how their perspective or their views on reality, and introduce it into Canada. And like the Chinese just picked up the torch from the Russians, right? So this communist torch has been being passed around for a very long time, and who knows, maybe I think that people should start learning how to speak Canto and Mandarin, because it might be not too long where that we're actually going to see the Chinese overtly in our country. Like we already have them, they're already in the police forces, right? So I think it's really, really bad. I think everything that's been going on, it kind of all ties together. And why are the Chinese so interested in Canada? Just take a look at our resources, right? Like we have absolutely everything that any country would want in abundance. And it's just sad that a country like Canada, like if we actually took care of our own citizens, of our own people, and were not infiltrated and subverted, we would have been we would have been an economic superpower. But we're basically on the verge of a third world nation.
Yeah, we're going to skip second world and go straight to third world, right? It's national security issues. I'm sure Great Britain in 1775 thought it was a national security issue that the people were getting upset. So from their perspective, it most certainly will be a national security issue, or a colony security issue. Is that kind of where the winds are going around here? Are they picking up the frustration from Canadians? Rightfully so, because we are responding to the actions of our government as we should. And are they actually testing that water and saying, ooh, this is like worse than the convoy? If they hear this, they're going to be really, really upset. And is that the national security that we're hearing from? And if so, where's our opposition? Where are they? And John has a question here for you that I do want you to get to. It was for Josh, but he asked if you can answer it. Define Canadian conservatism in the 21st century. Are you able to do that?
Well, what is conservatism, right? Like, what is liberalism? Like, when we take a look at the spectrum, a lot of people just see it as you know, a left and right, but it's been skewed and pushed so far that those lines have been blurred. It really doesn't make sense. So, like, yeah, you can have your conservative values, you know, your fiscally responsible governments, your limited governments, your reduced taxation. But I think now we have to add in another aspect of your authoritarianism versus libertarianism. So you have your left and right, and you have your up and down, right? So
Right.
I think like the conservative is just the one step, because you can have an authoritarian conservative governments, and like a lot of people like realize that these mandates on a provincial level will push through on the conservative governments, right? So like, what is conservatism in 2021 in Canada? Like, I can basically call it fascism, right? Where, you know, you're using government, a conservative branded government, they're not real conservatives, we all know that, to
Mhm.
push through policies with force that have severe penalties. If not, like, if you resisted some of these COVID policies, they would shut your business down, they would fine you, or worse. So like, I think that we have to get away from, you know, the conservatism liberalism point of view, and take a look at a more of an authoritarian versus libertarian point of view, where you either want to use force against somebody, some others, to drive your narrative or to push your views across, or you don't. You are more interested in yourself, and you're not interested in using force, whether it be through regulation, taxation, or actual physical violence against others. So that's my point of view, is like, I don't use violence, and I don't try to weaponize my ideas
Mhm.
to further my own agenda. I just want to be left alone. That's why I live in Quebec. That's why I'm on a farm, away from society. I just want to be left alone.
And then how about the wins of political wins in Quebec? So if we can kind of just zoom in on Quebec itself, who's your premier? What are they doing, and are you happy with them?
Well, it's like Quebec, as everybody knows, that had some of the most draconian lockdowns in Canada, if not the world. Like, we had curfews where if you would go out to walk your dog or not, you could get fined. Um, so the lunacy of Quebec's government, Premier Legault, we call him Blockhead, like Lego head, right? Blockhead, Legault. So that's what I call him. And what was really disturbing to me is that even after all this COVID nonsense went through, they had an election, and he was reelected as like a super government. So like, he
Right.
basically has a super majority, kind of like how Kenny won in the last election, right? In Alberta, he had a super majority. So it's the same thing here, and the same thing in Ontario with Doug Ford. It's like, these people that push this COVID tyranny, just got just basically got an approval from the population. We can say, you know, elections are rigged, and sure, but they can't rig it to the point where you're going to have that much of a support. Like, he got overwhelming support, and the election was called in like 15 minutes as a winner. So yeah, not very happy. And that's why I say all these premiers need to go, all the prime minister needs to go, all the MPs need to go. Like, they're not working for us.
So what's really I question every once in a while. I do self-reflection. I question even myself. I think that's one of the better things people should do. And if as I'm watching this, we're seeing our fellow Canadians go more and more into go ahead, take my rights, go ahead, take care of me. So when you're seeing super majorities in like Ontario after all of this and Quebec, is that the people saying, yeah, I'm cool with this, I'm cool with this? And if so, why are we seeing it so radically different than they are? Like, are we missing something, or are they just completely lost?
I think society's gone completely off the deep end, if you ask me. But we're not at a point where, so these people, they want this, but they haven't really seen the effects of what their policies actually entail, right? So it's just like, you know, voting for the National Socialists in Germany, 1933. Like, yeah, let's vote for him. Like, he's going to help us out. And like, what happened 10 years later? So we haven't really seen the effect effects of these policies come to fruition, where the people that voted these people in really felt the pain. And it's coming. It could take 5-10 years, but I think that's when we're going to have a major societal revolt.
Oh, I think you might be right. And we got some nodding from Azario. So let's throw it over to Azario and continue this conversation.
Hey,
Thanks for
good morning,
having me on,
everyone.
Jason.
Thank you very much, Kevin. We'll talk soon. Okay, bud. Are you going to come back next week?
Absolutely.
Okay, and we'll be in the PM this time, so it'll be a better time. Take care, bud. We'll talk soon.
Cheers.
Morning, Kevin. Cheers.
Azario, how you doing, my friend?
Doing great, Jay. How are you, man?
I'm good. Okay, let's move this microphone. See my microphone? I'm moving it to the corner. You move yours to the corner because we're brothers and sisters.
You can move it all the way over here.
There we go. Look at that. Yeah, so they're now touching. Brother and sister, how you doing, brother from another mother?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. It's a decent Wednesday here. It's been an interesting couple of days. We've, as Kevin was alluding to earlier, we've had a lot of smoke from the wildfires. I don't think it's anything like you guys had out there when you're directly next to the fires themselves.
Right.
But it's certainly causing a lot of impact to outdoor activities down here.
I was going to say, I can see you, but according to the news out here, you guys have to wear masks. It's very thick, and you guys are worried about dropping in the streets.
Honestly, last night the air quality got pretty bad outside, and to a point where I felt irritation, and I was just like, "Oh, this is not good to be outside." And but we've got like 40 fires burning over northern Ontario, and the winds are coming predominantly from the north, so they're like basically driving it all the way down to the south. So like locally here, even under a burn restriction since yesterday, they basically enacted that. In where I am right now, we have not had rain in over 2 weeks. So there could be a risk for casual fires, like getting loose in this particular area. But I don't want to be too alarmist. But it's a problem right now. So
yeah, it's a problem. There's a really dry winter. But does this make you want paper straws and go put up your own windmill and stuff? Like, does this make you worry about climate change?
No, it doesn't necessarily make me worry about climate change, because I know that this was not an act of God, let's say. There's compelling evidence that these were intentionally set. We don't have 100% on that, but it's certainly there's a lot of view towards that. And Mr. Guilbeault, he was even caught saying that he could accelerate his climate change even if he didn't have to fight those meddling kids, the Conservative Party. So he could be driving his climate action further, faster, and easier if he didn't have to deal with the Conservatives. So
yeah, no, when that opposition gets annoyed, it's always tough. People that have opinions counter to yours, it's always tough.
Those checks and balances, right? Like that's just, we can't have that. We must have a complete control of everything. So
yeah, and this could be the result of the free parking generation in Monopoly. So we added a rule to the game that gave money and collected money from, it was supposed to be to the bank. We're passing that to the people. So this might be the net result of free parking in Monopoly, and our understanding that we could just do that. We could just make a rule that puts money into our pockets, and everybody's cool with that. Maybe we should go back to the original rules. There is no free parking. It's just a spot where nothing happens.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go drill down into more Quebec. Well, this is not Quebec, Ontario.
Je ne parle pas français, monsieur.
But what I want to get into is, we all know who you got, Ford. But one of the things that kind of came up recently, which I was a little surprised. We were having a conversation, and Padge put into the conversation, because we're talking about Danielle and her pride messaging, and she said, "Hey, Ford skips the parades and he doesn't go to them. He goes to his cabin for the weekend." And then I looked it up, and I'm like, "Uh-oh, he stopped doing that, and now he goes to the pride parade." So your PM used to be standing up, kind of. He wasn't rude. He wasn't dismissive. He wasn't, he wasn't a phobia of any kind. He just said simply, "Not my thing. I'm going to go somewhere else." And in this world where we're allowed to identify, are we not allowed to identify as somebody that doesn't like to go to pride parades? But anyways, there's been a switch. There's clearly a switch. What do you think happened? And what does this mean for you when you're looking at your leader, and clearly, because we can call this a flip-flop pander, he's doing that? How does that make you feel, and what do you think?
I don't necessarily think that it's just limited to Ford. I think that this is a pivot that many of the premiers in the country had to take, and this was born out of the COVID crisis. We saw that many of them had very hardline opinions, and we're not going to lock down. We're not going to have passports. We're not going to do mandates. And then all of a sudden, everything tilted on its head. And I think that was a result of overt pressure from the Fed, basically saying we're going to withhold payments to you if you don't do this stuff, and that really caused a lot of the premiers to fall in line. I think probably the same sort of leverage that the federal government is using to, really push around the premiers of the provinces. Because if you had told me 10 years ago that Doug Ford would take this position on LGBT rights, I would have been like, "You're crazy, man. This is no possible way. That's not who he is." And he doesn't have a hate for them. He's like, "You go do your thing, and I'm going to do my thing, and everybody's happy, and nothing to worry about here." Related story to this, though, is Stephen Lecce, who's the Minister of Education, sent a statement out on June 2nd, basically kicking off Pride Month, and he's basically saying that it's incumbent on all the school boards to ensure all students, especially the two SLGBTQ plus students, feel supported, reflected in their schools, and welcome within our communities. And that includes celebrating Pride. So he's really basically been saying that, he was directly quoted as saying, the exclusion of or erasure of identities from educational materials constitutes a form of discrimination. So you've got his education minister, backing this up and really pushing this down, because there's been a number of school boards that have said, no, we're not raising the pride flag. We're going to do our own thing. Especially a lot of the Catholic boards have, and there's been a tremendous call for, removing funding from the Catholic boards at the same time. And I mean, when I first heard that a Catholic board was taking place in Pride activities, I don't know, I think it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, I nearly fell off my chair, because I was like, wait, what? This just flies in the face of Catholicism, and it's against the beliefs of that religion. So it was pretty interesting to see. But now you have the Ontario government really pushing this agenda down. And I think that's a mistake. I think, they need to be recognized in their communities, but we're starting to see more of a playbook akin to California, I think, in the indoctrination of children. And that it's not a good outcome. It's going to leave confused kids. It's going to leave them potentially permanently disfigured or damaged medically from procedures that may take place. And I don't support that. I think you talk about like Billboard Chris, prime example. He would be awesome to get on your show too.
Chris guy?
Oh yeah. No.
Yeah, I can get him.
Billboard Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, and Billboard Chris is actually doing a protest with Josh Alexander in I believe it's in Ottawa on Friday this week, in front of Josh's school, where Josh Alexander got kicked out of for standing up for.
We're very proud of Josh. Yeah. We're very proud of Josh. Keep it up, Josh.
Yeah, the school board sent out a notice to all its parents saying that be aware that this is going to happen on Friday. We don't want anybody to be impacted negatively by it, but just don't mention these folks on social media. We don't want to give them more of a voice than what they're going to be protesting.
Well, I've been thinking about while you're talking, one way to maybe get this fixed is we have to take the step of defining the LGBT group as a religion, because religion will be excluded from school then. So maybe this is where we need to head. Maybe that needs to be officially recognized as a type of religion, a faith.
Well, we could define two things as religion: liberalism and gender ideology as religions, or cults. Call them what you want, but.
Well, religion, cult, it depends which side you're on. But religion, if it was defined as religion, we would have less of an issue with it being excluded from school. So that might be a way forward. And I'm going to add Manitoba. Hello, Manitoba. Hey now, Brody. Nice to know your name, bud.
Yeah, I guess I never told you.
Yeah, it's all good. This is what Twitter world is like. You kind of know people by their handle, not by their name. It's a weird identity, the Twitter identity. But thank you, Azario. Let's go ahead and throw it over to Manitoba.
Adios. Have a great day, guys.
Take care, Azario. Thank you, bud. Hey, oop, too many people push buttons. Zahena. How are you doing? Did I get it right?
Yeah, that's right. Zahena is the band name. Yeah.
Yeah, and for everybody who doesn't know, you made the music that's in our intro and outro, and people are loving the song, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome. Good to hear.
Yeah. So, how long did it take you to make it? Because I know we were chatting, and you were putting it together like last year, and then boom, you got it done.
Yeah, I think I started around August last year when we started talking. I was kind of in a depression slump, and you kind of encouraged me, and I got back into the studio and started recording again, and that's what came out. I got the drummer from the original drummer from Big Wreck, Donald Williams, to do the drums, and yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, I encourage you to kind of get back into it, and I'm also encouraging you to maybe get on stage. So June 19th,
I'm hoping to do that before too long.
Yeah, so there might be an opportunity to just take out your guitar, do some acoustic, maybe hang out in the background or on stage. You're down for that if the opportunity arises?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well,
awesome. All of my new songs are kind of hard to play on guitar. I spend a lot of time on them. So I don't know what all I can sing and play at the same time. So we'll find out.
Yeah, and then Tammy is saying here she loves your song. She does.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, and you can also find it on YouTube, everybody. He's got the full version with the lyrics and everything. So if you love it, you can check it out there too. But thank you very much
it's on Spotify and all the streaming services, iTunes and all that stuff too.
Yeah, plug away. Let everybody know.
Yeah, any streaming service, YouTube, Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music, all those. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'm really glad that you're joining us. And Manitoba has the nation's attention this next week or so. Right. Well, with Max.
With Maxine.
Yeah. Because this could be a fork in the road. This could be, Canada, or at least rural Canada, may have a say in what's going to happen here. So what's for the people you're hanging around with, your family, your neighbors, and stuff like that? What's the energy in the air like? Are they excited? Are they worried? Do they like the attention? Do they hate the attention? Or does nobody paying attention? Is that also
as far as I've seen, nobody's really paying attention. I live a couple hours away from Portage, so I haven't heard much. I'm not an overly social person though, so that might be why. I don't know. I think it's an opportunity for the PPC to get a seat and possibly start getting the CPC to do more on the social issues. Like I'm a supporter of Pierre Poilievre. I think he would be a good prime minister, but I'm kind of disappointed that on the social issues, he's kind of just ignored them completely, actually.
Right. Which ones are important to you? Which social issues are important to you? That he's
all the woke garbage, especially with the, like I have to preface this with, I have no problem with the LGBT people per se, but I do have a problem with the movement and pushing it in schools. I don't think that that's an appropriate thing to be teaching children. And I would rather that they be learning the essentials like reading and math and science and things like those, rather than what they're teaching now.
Now, in your schools, are you aware of any CRT or critical race theory or LGBT ideology? Are you aware of any in the schools in your area?
No. Although Brandon did have, some people tried to get some of the books taken out of the library, like genderqueer and things like that. And there was quite a backlash, and they ended up keeping it in the libraries, which, I think a lot of people have the mistaken idea that these books are just teaching kids about this stuff, but they're quite graphic and there's some obscene material in there that if people actually took the time to read the books, they would want them not available to children. Like, to be available in a public library is one thing, but to be available to children is an entirely different issue.
Absolutely. And what we've seen a lot of are parents reading the books in parent meetings or teacher
Oh
conferences
yeah,
or in the school boards. And then when they do that, they're told immediately that's inappropriate, that's lewd, that's
right.
obscene. And that's
Yeah.
the point. But they're missing the point on purpose, or what's going on with the
Yeah,
board when that
I
happens.
don't know what's going on there. Like, yeah, if you can't read it, like if I were to put the book up on YouTube, it would be brought down for, inappropriate material. So why is this stuff being allowed, in children's libraries? And we're talking like prepubescent kids can access this stuff in a lot of
Mhm.
cases, which is that's just wrong. I mean, clearly it's wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's also a subject matter which doesn't really assist with, let's say, reproduction and the actual purpose of sex.
Yeah.
It doesn't even assist with that message or that understanding. Like, I don't really have
Yeah.
an issue with learning sex that ends
Right.
with reproduction or try to avoid reproduction, but this is a different thing altogether. This isn't a reproduction-based anything. So I have
Yeah.
a major problem with that.
Well, and it's one thing to teach that some kids have two dads or two moms or things like that, but to get into the graphic details, I mean, I don't see how anybody thinks that's appropriate for children. It just doesn't make sense to me. And and for heterosexual, I would have the same objections to any obscene material in schools, for that matter.
For
Like,
sure.
children are supposed to be innocent of all these things. They're supposed to be kids, and they're robbing kids of their childhood.
Yeah, I remember my sex ed in school. It was around grade 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. And it certainly
Hmm.
wasn't graphic. It was more around the
No.
health and it was around the purpose, more like what is it and how to keep yourself safe. Not
Yeah,
here
exactly.
are the positions or here are the things you do or here's what you have to do or nothing like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that I don't have any problem with the traditional education we used to get. It's more and it's the whole wokeism creeping into everything, right?
Right.
You're not allowed to have standards. You're not allowed to have distinctions. There's a war on distinctions. Male, female, all that stuff. There's every distinction that's set out by the Bible, for instance, is there's a war against it these days.
And we got a request from a viewer. So John has asked you, will Hey now give us a Canadian version of the Star Spangled Banner, something upbeat, yet with a deep meaning, something played on a Gibson Les Paul guitar in the vein of Eddie Van Halen. Boy, is there
I
a
could
specific,
try.
yeah, which key or what key do you want that in, John? You want to drop the D
Yeah.
on that, drop the G on that one? I learned that from
I, I
Azario.
saw I saw when my song was played on your show that somebody says in drop D. It's actually an open C tuning. It's the
There you go.
same tuning as Big Rex the Oath. That's
Well, there you
that's
go,
how I learned
Azario.
how that tuning.
Look at that. We're all learning something today. And I think John's kind of got a point. Our national anthem, even though we changed it to remove like the word sun,
Yeah, I
the,
still think
the
that.
it's a little ridiculous. We are a stand on guard for the mentality. So we don't go, we wait for the problem to come to us. But the Star
Yeah.
Spangled Banner is completely different. The Star Spangled Banner is, hey, we don't have a problem with you. Bombs bursting in air, right? So the
Yeah, the
Star
American
Spangled,
spirit. Yeah.
yeah, they are a spear first type of anthem, and we are a shield first type of anthem.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
do
what
like
John,
that about our country, that we're
I
not warmongers. I appreciate that about Canada.
I do as well, but and I think what John's getting at is it leads to a passive position because you wait
Oh
for the
yeah,
bomb
no,
to come
not for
to you.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think he's wondering, is there a way to have a spear and a shield, a sword and a shield? Because we kind of need to remind Canadians that, yeah, we should stand on guard for thee. And we can talk about who thee is, country, myself, who is thee. But we also need to stop I don't want to necessarily use the word evil, but the push, the agenda, the narrative. Like, should we be riling each other up and saying, hey, look, stand on guard for thee until they come. And when they
Yeah.
come, stand on guard and something else. I don't want to get into any violence, but I think what John's mentality is, we're shield, not a sword. And maybe that's why we're so passive on a lot of this stuff recently. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we maybe tend to be a little reactive instead of proactive. We
Right.
let a lot of stuff slide. We largely have a live and let live mentality, which can be healthy to a degree, but then you got to know where the lines are and when it goes too far, right?
Right. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think you're right. Well, thank you so much. Where's my Saskatchewan? Zach, if you're listening, we're waiting on you, bud. Let me just check my times. 10 minutes. Okay, cool. Is that right? Sorry, folks. I seem a little disoriented right now. Zach at 7:10. Yeah, no, we're still good. So let's go ahead and talk about your premiere. Who are they?
Sure.
What was their? When did they get in? And what is the current position for the people there? Are you happy? Not happy? Want to change? You're going to get behind her? What's going on?
Sure. We started out with Brian Pallister pre-COVID, and then he just went in lockstep like every premier did during COVID, and didn't fight, didn't question anything, and he there's no way he could win a re-election, so he stepped back, and Heather Stephenson kind of filled in the gap, and I've been pretty unimpressed with her so far. I mean, our healthcare is a mess, although that's on the federal government too. That's not just provincial. But then I saw on Twitter she wrote some woke garbage for Pride for the month of June, like the pandering and virtue signaling. I'm not for that. I'd rather politicians stand up and say what they mean and be honest with people rather than try and hide behind virtue signaling and stuff like that. So yeah, not a fan.
No, we had that too. Of course, Danielle sent out a tweet as well in the third.
Yeah, what was with that? Like, she just won a majority by standing against all that, the prevailing winds, so to speak, and then she just completely kowtows on June 1st. Like, what's with that?
Yeah, so that's something we spoke about a couple times on the show, whether or not she's trying to keep the door open to that group or not. We're not quite sure what she's doing. Because if she did nothing, that's a good signal that she doesn't want to talk to them. But that might then lead to the inability to talk to them. I think she might be naive and thinking that this is a group that you can negotiate with, because it's not. It's not a group you can negotiate with.
No, there's no negotiation. You celebrate or else you're another.
Not only do you celebrate, you support, and never stop. If you ever even stop the push, all of a sudden you're the enemy again. So no, it's a perpetual requirement on their side to always put your energy behind it, or else. And that or else is standing there the entire time. I don't think she's afraid of the group. I don't think she did that because she was pandering to them. I think she might be trying to do something that's not very smart, which is to keep the door open with this group, because they're just going to kick the door down, come in with that olive branch, and then beat her with it. That's what they're going to do. So, do you think maybe the same thing's happening in Manitoba, or do you think she's taken a step further and she really is pandering to that group?
I'm not entirely sure. It's hard to I can't say what her motive is, I suppose, but you look at all the premiers. Scott Moe did the same thing. It's pandering to the crowd, and there's nothing wrong with saying we believe in the LGBT rights, because I mean every human being is created in God's image and is deserving of equal rights, but we don't believe in the movement that's trying to indoctrinate children and break down everybody else's rights. That they're tolerant to the point of intolerance to those who don't agree with them, right? So yeah, I don't know what Heather's up to. She's got an election, I believe, this fall, and I don't know the NDP candidate. I don't know if he can win against her. We're normally an NDP province, with the odd conservative here or there, but I'm not sure ultimately what her aim is. If she's just trying to get as many votes as possible and so pander to whoever, but then you alienate your base. So I don't know. I guess
she should learn from Bud Light and stuff. Like, when you pander to a group, it doesn't go well, and even that group will turn on you if you don't pander well enough.
Well, that's what happened with Bud Light. They didn't stand up and say, yes, we support what we did, and so gay bars in the U.S. have stopped carrying their beer. So they've lost their entire audience, which is kind of ridiculous. It was a dumb move to say to your base, we don't like you. That's not a smart move.
Yeah, and then we won't stand up on you, and then we'll also insult you with a commercial with the horses and stuff. It's kind of like, you'll forget it if we throw a horse in front of you.
Rah America doesn't work when you've insulted your base. A simple apology, look, our VP made a mistake and we apologize. We go a long way with their customer base. That's all they would really have to do. It might take some time to gain back their audience, but they could gain it back with an apology, I think.
Yeah, I was kind of half expecting the horse to identify as a cow, and that would have been the commercial for us. It's not a horse, it's a cow, and they're trying to milk it and stuff.
Right.
Go on, right. Maybe learn your lesson there. Okay, so on the ground in Manitoba, you're looking at election, you said in the fall? Possibly
I believe so. I'm not, don't quote me on that. I just think we've had enough years now that I think we're headed for an election this fall.
Okay, and I know Saskatchewan, I think it looks like they're having theirs next month, but we'll get into that with Zach. So there might be some leadership changes on the prairies in the next little bit. Now, if there is, where do you want to see it go? If there is a leadership change in Manitoba, where do you want to see it go?
Unfortunately, I think Heather's probably our best option because Liberals just can't win in Manitoba. I don't know if they've ever run Manitoba, and the NDP just generally runs it into the ground. So I don't know that we have much of an option provincially here. So I'm kind of hoping she gets back in, but you know, what can you do when your options are limited, right?
Yeah, well, Prairie brought up a point, and she's in Manitoba as well, probably not too far from you. And she said, I wanted to turn purple here. Well, that would be a federal level, right?
Yeah.
No, to talk about PPC, but there's no provincial PPC party.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So if there was a provincial PPC party, another option, still conservative rooted, anchored strong in some beliefs, abortion, gender, all that kind of stuff, would you, and do you think others in Manitoba might support a provincial level PPC party?
I would support a PPC candidate if they reflected my values, and you can see that they have a chance of winning. That's also, as much as it sucks, that's part of the equation, right? If a candidate has zero popularity, they're not going to win. But I would definitely consider a PPC type candidate in Manitoba.
Yeah, that's the fault of a first past the post electoral system. When we're doing popularity, if you go look onto YouTube, there's some good videos about the problems with a first past the post electoral system. It doesn't really get the people's will. It gets what you just said there. You get the calculated risk of putting your vote where you think it will actually have a win. It's more like a hockey team than it is political at that point. You're trying to get behind the winner, not necessarily who you want. And that's a problem with the first past the post electoral system. Now, do you think we need to change that?
I would be up for reform. One thing I think we could look into is, like, in America around, I think it was around 2010 or so, they had the Tea Party, or late 2000s anyway. The Tea Party ran as Republicans, but they had a kind of a set of values that you had to adhere to be part of the Tea Party, and then run as a Republican. So, you know, we could have a similar thing in Canada, in Manitoba, where, you know, you'll run under this umbrella, but then you're running as a conservative or something like that to take that seat away from the conservatives not doing conservative things. I'd be up for something like that too.
Well, this is Canada. I don't know how far a Tea Party would go, but a Tim Hortons party might have some traction. Or morning coffee party. And Prairie is saying here, Manitoba's election is October 3rd, 2023. So
so it is this fall.
Yeah, you were right. Your instincts were right on that one. Very, very good. And maybe if there was another push from the roots in Manitoba, because I was in Manitoba for my high school years. So I went to Fort Richmond Collegiate. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Winnipeg. I was one of those guys with sandbags during the floods. And I was also one of those guys with a shovel during the blizzards. Winnipeg keeps you really busy. If you're not running away from the if you're not running away from the mosquitoes, you're hanging out in basements listening to bands, because that was a big thing out there. But do you want to go ahead and leave people with a message about Manitoba? What you guys are, not what you guys, what you're planning to do on a political level in the next little bit. Are you going to go to the June 19th thing? Are you going to go see what's going on with Max?
Yeah, I hope to make it out there. I think it's an opportunity for us to give the CPC a lesson, a message that we want them to do more on social issues, because that's one area where Maxime, he really does just call it like it is. I mean, he has nothing to lose, so he's doing it partly because of that, I think. But also, I think he's starting to see the change that's happening socially in this country with conservatives. They're kind of fed up with the status quo, and it would be a message to the CPC that, look, we need you to do better. And on financial issues, I think the conservatives are doing much better, but that seems to be their only focus. And I'd like to see them start to look at all the other issues too.
Like the critical race theory and wokeism and all that kind of stuff. Those issues are
Yeah,
important to you?
mostly the woke garbage. I mean, I don't think the majority are behind the woke stuff. I think it's kind of a very vocal minority type thing.
Yeah, and maybe we should take a lesson from their playbook, because we are right now a marginalized minority that's vocal. Maybe we should look at how some of the things they did, start pressuring people, canceling people, holding people accountable. There might be a path forward. Well, thank you, Zahay. Now, Brody, you have lots of fans.
Nice to meet you finally.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, and I hope I can meet you on June 19th in person. So
yeah,
if I can't meet you there,
if it works out, I definitely will. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can't make it, I might be able to come see you.
Sure. Yeah, we're on the way. So.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'll have a hamburger before I go there. All right, Brody, I got to run because Saskatchewan, they got all the power right now. The balance of power is in the west. So let me get to Zach. All right, bud.
Thank you.
Bye, Brody. Good morning, Saskatchewan. How are you today?
Good morning, Jason. I'm doing pretty good. It's been an early morning. I had a late night last night. Just kid stuff, and then can't sleep after that. But here, ready to talk some Saskatchewan politics.
Wonderful. Well, I caught your show with Rob, and it was a wonderful, wonderful episode.
It was. It really surprised me.
It surprised you in how much you got out of him, or it surprised you in just the entire general show?
Kind of both. I had met him about a month and a bit ago at Sask United Party event. They were doing a bunch of kind of like policy stuff, trying to build their platform, and he was there and did a big presentation on guns, and just his knowledge of history, his whole presentation just absolutely blew me away. So I've been in contact with him to try to get him on my show. And when he did, it was just like one of those interviews that was it just went really, really well. The stuff that we talked about was awesome. And then, when you have guests, I usually try to hang around a little bit, talk to them after, and just, see what's up. And the conversation that we had after, I just wish we would have kept on recording because it was so good as well. So it's like, it was just one of those conversations, and I really do hope to have him back on to talk about things outside of guns, because even the stuff that we're talking about, just his experience as an MP was unreal. So that was a really good one. For those that don't know, Rob Anders, he's a former Conservative Party MP, but he's been involved with firearms for a very long time, from the education side of it. So it was a really good interview. Firearms are a huge interest of mine.
And thanks to your introduction, he'll be on the show on Monday. So he'll be our
good.
First afternoon guest. It's going to be great. Looking forward, and he's from Alberta, so looking forward to hearing his take again on Danielle, maybe what he thinks about that June tweet, and more importantly, property rights. We'll definitely get into that. But so thank you very much for that introduction. It was a great episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go ahead, and now we've kind of let everybody know who you are. You're the podcaster, and you were a guest on one of our shows. So everybody here should know exactly who you are. But let's go jump into this Saskatchewan politics. Yeah.
So Saskatchewan's kind of in an awkward place. We've been essentially had the Sask party since about 2007, if I'm not mistaken. And we have another election coming up next year. And there's been two parties more on the right that have entered the race as well, to kind of combat the opposition of the NDP. So we have the Sask United Party, which I had mentioned before. I attended their convention. They're a new party led by Nadine Wilson. She is out of, I think, Prince Albert, and she left the Conservative Party here called the Sask Party. She left them during COVID. Had lots of backlash with back and forth with Scott Moe, our premier. Decided to leave the party, start her own thing, and that's kind of where one of the party that has entered the race and the arena here. The other one is the Buffalo Party. That's the party that I support. They're separatist first, which is something that I think is important. So they're separatist first. Buffalo Party actually did run in the last election, and they finished third, which is really good for a brand new party. They actually beat the second place NDP in multiple areas. I think there's about 5 areas that they beat the NDP out, and they only ran in 17 of the 61 ridings that were available. So there's definitely a shift in the status quo here. I know you had on Mark Friesen, and he kind of alluded to this when you were talking with him, is that when Scott Moe goes and tours around and is talking about all of his usual stuff that, you know, he thinks is conservative, there's even pushback at town halls, and people are starting to question the narrative, specifically around things around Agenda 2030 and the goals of sustainable development. You know, we see, much like Danielle Smith, as he said that he's going to have net zero in 2050 instead of 2035 or 2030, whenever it was originally pitched. And that's just kind of the status of conservatism, I would say, like everywhere right now. They're willing to do what the left wants, but they might just give it a later date, or they might do what the left wants, but not give them everything that they want. So it's a common theme right now. And I think Scott Moe is kind of no different on that front. And I hope that people start waking up and realizing that that's what conservatism is. It's, you know, bending over backwards to give the liberals or the left what they want, as long as you get a couple wins here and there, instead of saying, here's what we want, here's our line in the sand, and we will not cross it. I think there's some new entrances, not just in Saskatchewan, but in other places that do have that backbone and are willing to say no.
And are you a fan of Modern Family? Have you ever watched that show?
I think I might have seen a couple of episodes, but I understand the premise. Yeah.
Right. There's this one episode with Cameron and Mitchell, the gay couple who are looking to build a house, or they're working on renovating a house. And Cameron made this point, and I think this is the root of all leftism, is they were trying to decide on what to put in the back. So Cameron said, I want all of this stuff, grand. And then Mitchell said, no, we're not doing that. And then they compromised in the middle and then settled on one thing. And then Cameron's let it be known that that one thing was what his original desire was. He went over the top, so there's room to scale back and then get to where he really wanted to be. Yeah. I see this is what happens with leftism, with the carbon.
Well, it's classic sales techniques. They'll do foot in the door. They'll do the big ask, like all of that stuff, to be able to get their get what they actually want. And the conservatives get hoodwinked every single time.
Yeah, we fall for it because we want to be negotiators and compromisers. We kind of want to leave the situation as the group that was willing to negotiate and compromise, get what we want, give up a little. You know, it's supposed to be everybody loses type of thing. But no, I don't agree with that. I think at times you need to put a line in the sand and you don't move from it. And there's certain issues where you need to stay very anchored. And I don't see that. We have soft conservatives, or we have tolerant conservatives, or as Gov says here, conservatives are just liberals driving the speed limit.
Yeah.
Without trying to make it sound like an extreme right-wing type of revolt, how do we get back to our anchored conservatism, which are issues that we don't move on? We protect the children, we protect the unborn. We just simply don't move on some of these issues. What do you think about that?
Well, I think this would be more of a federal thing, but I think it could apply other places too, is why aren't the conservatives willing to compromise to the other side of the equation, right? We don't have the federal conservatives willing to compromise anything to try to push and like partner with the PPC, which is trying to pull them back to the right, but they'll compromise on the liberals with anything, right? So it's pretty similar right across the board. So, I mean, what we need to do is start pressuring the people. I don't think that you can change these parties internally, especially if you're looking for a quick solution, which I think most people are kind of saying is, well, we just got to do this in 2025 to get the libs out, and then things will be all hunky-dory. And that's not the way that it's going to be. And then they say, well, once they get in, they're not going to do the things that they're saying they're going to do. They're going to listen to us. That's not true either. Or they're going to say, once they get in, then we'll start putting the pressure internally. We just got to do this, right? So it's like the small C conservatives are just as compromised as the big C ones, right? So you really do need that external force. And if we're looking at the new parties that are entering in Saskatchewan, the Buffalo Party and Sask United, right? That is how you're going to get that tug back the other way. It's not by supporting the status quo. You have to go dive deep into the deep end of the pool, feet first, and be willing to sink a little bit before you can climb up, right? It's not going to be just waiting around in the shallow end thinking that things are going to be fine. If you want to learn to swim, you got to get into the deep end. I think that taking steps like that is a really good plan. I think the biggest battle, honestly, is cultural. I think
Yeah.
that when we continually see things like, well, What Is a Woman is a great example. The number one stream in 2022, or in June of 2022, the number one stream in June of 2023. There's people that are paying attention and are wanting to that and wanting to see stuff like that stop. But the problem is those same people will go to the voting booth and vote for the people that caused the problem, right?
Right.
So there has to be a big culture shift. People need to start talking. Shows like this, shows like mine, fantastic little things that people can do. But if you're not out there actively talking about this on a bigger stage, or even take a look at what Max is doing in Portage right now. He has a whole team that is going door to door to spread the ideas. Now, I'm not saying that that's what you have to do outside of an election season, but you can talk to your neighbors. You can talk to people that at your kids' sports teams and stuff like that. There's little things that you can do publicly that will cause a shift, but being quiet and being scared is not going to solve any problems.
What if we change the ballot to read the issue? So vote yes to harm children, vote yes to protect children. How do you think that vote would go? Because that's basically what we're doing, right?
Well, I mean, there's multiple facets to that. I think most people and the politicians prey on this is low information voters, right? We need to shift that if we're looking to be able to actually solve problems via voting. Okay. If we can actually have a change in the education of what the issues actually are, people would be more aware. And that is, again, whereas when you look at having conversations with your neighbors and people around you, it's those little things out in public that is going to cause a huge effect, rather than just assuming that people are going to do their own research. People are going to come across shows like us that are talking about these issues, right? So there's multiple different things that could have a positive effect. As far as voting, if you really wanted to, I think you should remove parties. I think everybody should have to run independently. It'll cause people to actually, who is this person that I'm going to check? There's things you could even say, raising the voting age to 25, right? Very unpopular thing, but people's brains would be fully developed. You would have people that are actually maybe done post-secondary education, have some work experience in their life, have been paying taxes for 7 years, and all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, where's my money going? Stuff like that. There's little societal things that would probably have a good effect, but I think removing the color from the ballots would be a good idea. And then the biggest thing is actually having people to have to take some sort of test or requirement to go in and say, here's the issues that these people are bringing up. Here's their stance on it, right? So that you have to read like a pamphlet or something like that. Like, it's voting is imperfect. Even if we changed something from the first past the post, there's going to be multiple different ways that system can be gamed as well. They've run simulations I've seen where they end up with the exact same result between 85 to 90% of the time with different voting systems, right? Even if you look at something as simple as they might differ on issue A or B, but then they form a coalition, and then it's irrelevant and your vote was wasted because you thought the person was going to stand for something that they don't.
I like what you said there. Maybe remove the color and the party from the vote, from the ballot. So it's really just a candidate's name and nothing more. And if you don't know who you're voting for, check off don't know. Make that one of the options. Spoil your ballot, because it's not any value if you don't know who you're voting for a reason. So maybe that could be one first step. And then parliamentary reform, because it's a very party-centric parliamentary system. For example, the leader comes from the party's leadership, not voted as a leader by the Canadians.
Yeah.
For example,
I mean, you could simply do that. It's a separate vote for like your prime minister or premier, right? You have a separate vote. But I mean, you could ultimately do it. It'd be a lot more work, but the Americans do it as well, as you have voting on single issues, right? Having a ballot of 20 different votes that you would actually do would put more power to the people, would actually cause people to get more informed. But again, down in the States, then you just see down ballot voting. It's an imperfect system.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a tough one, and first past the post is another issue. Like how you vote. Like France, they do it differently. There's steps to it. They go through different stages before they come to the end. But either way, you don't want digital voting, and you don't want blockchain voting, right?
I think they have merit, but again, I think they would be way easier for them to actually cheat if it is electronic.
Exactly.
But I mean, I do like having a ledger. I think that maybe even if we had a public ledger of who voted and who they voted for, might be a good thing. It might cause cowardice where the person's not wanting to actually put publicly what they want. Again, it's an imperfect system. Every argument that someone puts forward for said voting system could be viewed as a con. Exactly. Yeah. It's
if you had open voting, you'd have Hillary in 2016.
Yeah,
and you would have had a major war and a whole bunch of other problems.
Yeah, there's multiple different ways to do it. I don't think Canada has the right one by any means. I think a good debate by people that are actually educated and again could maybe run simulations to actually see how it would play out. And I think actually, you know what, a big thing if we wanted to fix the voting system is get rid of polling, because the polling is there just to influence and change people's minds. They want to say, hey, here's the person who's going to win, go vote for them. It's not actually progressing the conversation. And you see this lots on Twitter. People will go crazy and say, well, they're leading in this poll or this poll, we're going to win, we're all going to vote for them. Even if you just hoodwinked them one time and flipped it, said, okay, whoever's on the bottom is winning by 30-40%, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden you would see the perception of that person shift immediately. They wouldn't be saying, oh, this person has no chance to win. They'd be like, oh, this person's actually going to win.
Right. And we're seeing that happen in Manitoba right now. There's a graphic going around that's saying a 99% chance of Conservative win and Max will lose. Yeah. And then I'm countering that graphic with Reuters, who said 90+% for Hillary to win the day of the election. So these polls mean nothing. Well, thank you very much. I have to bring Alberta in now. We got them both here.
And just one thing. Happy birthday, Motown. And subscribe to the Schmidt House podcast on Rumble. I'm dropping a new episode where I talk about a new episode tomorrow where I talk about 10 things to fix Canada. I actually do talk about voting on there. But good morning, everyone, and see you all later.
Yeah, happy birthday, Motown. Did you hear that from Saskatchewan? They got you covered there, Motown. Thank you, Zach. Bye, everybody. Good morning, Alberta. Joe, we got you muted, but you can go ahead and jump on anytime you're ready. There you are. And good morning, Andy Lee. We're definitely catching you bright and early, aren't we?
Yes.
This is Canada. This is grassroots. This is as real as it gets.
Yeah, it's busy here in the mornings because of school, right? So yeah, I'm like fresh out of the shower. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning. So for all the Canadians here, we got Joe up in Edmonton and we got Andy down in Calgary. So we've got Alberta fully covered here. So how about we go ahead and start with Joe up in Edmonton. We'll work our way down to Calgary. So Joe, go ahead and let people know who you are, even though you're on yesterday, and let us know what the update is on Alberta politics in northern Alberta.
Well, good morning, Canada. We're back from the Yellowhead country of northern Alberta near the Edson area with Jason Levine and my cohort in Calgary, the irreparable Andy Lee. Andy, congratulations for digging into what you've been digging in with. You're just now over at Rebel News and you're just slamming it. I bet you, I can imagine Ezra. You know, he comes in the morning, opens up shop, goes down and goes, boy, I wonder what whirlwind she's going to bring in today.
Great work.
So I'm doing some, freelancing for them. I'm calling myself their special rebel rapporteur. So yeah, I'm going to be covering a lot of the Chinese influence and things like that for them. So yeah, and we'll see where it goes from there. So anyways, yeah, good and good for them for, reaching out and trying to get that information out to more Canadians, because it's really, really important.
It is. It is. We need to dig in, especially like you've been doing for several years, digging into the Trudeau Foundation. I think a lot of people ought to be looking at the Rideau Hall Foundation, but we'll get on to that another day. Here in Alberta, of course, it's standard operating procedure after an election. Everybody's kind of hung over. There's really been no honeymoon over this particular issue at all this year, the election. I think we're in a hungover position. There's an awful lot on the move right now. As you can see, Albertans spoke to we spoke to the country by returning a UCP to power, but Albertans also spoke to specific UCP candidates and basically handed them a pink slip, said, see ya. You know, you screw Albertans over too many times, and we are going to show you to the nearest border and invite you to leave. Now, one of the things that I have noticed is that, you know, I live right in Edmonton. It's the orange center of the world. Really, it is. If you think Jagmeet ridings and NDP riding is hardcore NDP, you haven't been to Edmonton. In Edmonton, you know, we've got the Edmonton Oilers here, the big colors of orange and blue. If you look at the map, you'll see all of orange surrounded by one little blue dot in Edmonton, very much Oilerish. What we see is, as you were indicating earlier with your last guest, Josh, one of the reasons is there are a lot of ignorant voters in this great city I live in. People that vote on the color. They vote on a single issue that has nothing to do with the price of beef or oil in Alberta. It's just getting off the deep end up here. But this is one of the reasons why we are so happy to have such a vibrant province that allows us to have so many rural dwelling citizens that when they get to the voting polls, they can make the difference from the woke cities. That's the situation that I see it. I don't see it changing rapidly for the next several months, but I bet you as things progress financially and economically across Canada, as we get into the winter months, things will change. People's attitudes will change, because usually people do change when they start to freeze. Welcome to Alberta, north of the 53rd. Anyway, that being said, I just wanted to share a little bit of a hope that, you know, Motown, I hear it's your birthday down in Calgary. Now, if you're down there, you can go down to, well, we all know about Denny's. Go down there, get your Grand Slam free on your birthday. Maybe stop off over at Starbucks if you're really into, you know, supporting a woke corporation. Pick up your free pop. There's an ice cream pop joint down there just in Kensington area of Calgary. You get yourself a free, huge birthday ice cream bash. So Motown, I want you to do something special for yourself today. I want you to go out, preferably with, you know, enough money to get yourself out of jail if you happen to get into trouble, and enjoy your day. You know, I don't know how many years old you were, my friend, but I'll tell you one thing, the day you were born, God smiled. So thank you so much for what you're doing on Twitter, Motown, because I know you're just slamming the tweets, and that's the way it's got to be. Now, this is the moment where I kind of like throw Andy under the bus. She's looking at her phone, and I've had my 6 minutes of time. See, got her. And we turn it over. So there's the download from a crazy Albertan's position, looking at the UCP as kind of in a hangover zone.
Now, Andy, he mentioned how orange Edmonton, and Calgary is a little bit better. It's not so orange. There are some pockets and stuff there. Let's go ahead and continue from where Joe left off there.
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton's really an anomaly and an extreme outlier. And I always wanted to dig in. Maybe Joe knows more about that as to how that city became so, you know, progressive and left-leaning politically wise, and such a, you know, extreme outlier from the rest of Alberta, who's generally speaking very, very conservative. Yeah, I'm not sure how that evolution came to be. I'm sure that there's some sort of a story behind it, because it's such an extreme contrast. Yeah, I mean, we've got our little pockets of NDP, and there was definitely strong NDP support for during this election. You know, there's a lot of signs in my neighborhood. So yeah, but you know, we're definitely more conservative. I don't know if maybe that's changing, and maybe, you know, municipal politics plays a role in how that evolves, because, you know, we've got our woke mayor, so who's, you know, basically in, you know, lockstep with NDP and Justin Trudeau. So yeah, I mean, that may be one explanation, is it's sort of, you know, like trickle up politics, where, you know, we have municipal influence that sort of carries up to the provincial and federal level even. So yeah, but I mean, things are really quiet right now. I think everybody, you know, there was all these big crazy signs. Danielle Smith, what's she gonna do next? You know, she's sort of been very, very calm and composed, right? She hasn't done anything wild or come out swinging yet. So I think she's just, you know, gathering her thoughts as to, where she's going to start cleaning up. And there's a lot of cleaning up to be done, especially Calgary is not as bad, but I mean, Edmonton, we're seeing rampant crime and drug use and things like that. So she has made, right off the bat, certain pledges, while she was campaigning and things like that for additional police services. Of course, she's always looked at, our own provincial police service and, things like that. And she has been really vouching for more treatment-based, preventative measures for addictions and things like that, which we've already sort of trialed and have had, from my understanding, is a degree of good success with those programs. So I'd like to see her sort of start there and get people, comfortable and proud and feeling safe in their cities again. Tackle those sort of minor issues first to get our cities sort of flourishing and, restore their former glory and our pride in them. I mean, nobody wants to take a cruise around downtown Edmonton right now, right? Or certain areas. I took my boyfriend for a drive around downtown Calgary, and he was shocked to see how many tents and things were set up around the river. Usually they're set up outside of, the shelters and things like that are at capacity. So, and again, some of this is municipal overlap, but I am glad that, she's addressed that, there's some funding that needs to happen there. So yeah, I think that's one way that, I'd like to see her take action immediately, is to sort of start revitalizing these, what were really our jewels of Alberta.
Do you think, I love how she's working on mental health and really taking that seriously. Do you think that this is a multi-step process for her, where she's going to tackle mental health, bring it to the forefront, take it seriously, and then maybe start bringing things like gender dysphoria mental health and other types of things to help other people? Do you think that might be her plan? And what was your take? I chatted with Joe on it yesterday, but what was your take? She may not be swinging quickly yet, but she certainly put 120 or 280 characters out on Twitter that raised a big eyebrow for a bunch of people. What was your take?
I might have missed it. Sorry.
She on June 3rd, she did the LGBT tweet to the community.
And what? Okay. What
doing the support for Pride. Doing the support for
Joe.
Pride, man.
Let's bring Andy up to speed on that one.
Okay. Well, I do think I don't have any problems with politicians acknowledging Pride. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't think it's an endorsement necessarily of all that it's encompassing, and we're seeing it encompassing sort of more and more things. And it's really unfortunate what's happened to the movement. I mean, you may or may not know, my mother is gay, right? So, I have tremendous, support for the gay community and things like that, and believe that they deserve the same legal protection and rights as the rest of us. But it seems that the quality wasn't good enough, and now it's sort of become unfortunately a cause for some progressives, and maybe they've pushed it too far. Where because at the root of, essentially it was giving homosexuals the same equal rights, right? So it is a sex-based movement, and like I said, I'm fine with that. Like I would expect politicians to acknowledge
all groups,
prides in all groups, yes. So I don't have any problems with it, but I don't think that necessarily means that you have to accept all of the ideology, and it's a very difficult, it's a bombshell, career killing thing for politicians to talk about, right? Like simply because I've talked about this in the past, even if I'm in a respectful manner, will probably disclude me from running in a federal election ever again, unless I run as an independent. On those grounds alone, right? Like that's enough. So it's a nuclear issue. So you have to be really, really careful. But I do think that a lot of politicians are looking a little bit more critically as to what it's going, and are we actually doing more harm than good is what I'm seeing, because I'm seeing a lot of backlash now against the gay community because they are pushing it, on children and things like that. I think everybody can is concerned about transitions and things like that, you know, things that could have serious irreversible repercussions for children down the road. And I don't think that's a bigoted approach to take. I think it's a very reasonable approach to take. And, you know, there's a lot of concern about people that might be, you know, manipulating, you know, younger adults, maybe some adults who have mental health issues, and taking advantage of them for financial purposes. It is an industry, right? I think I've talked about this before, like, you know, pre-pandemic, I think in 2018, it was a $500 million industry or something like that. Or maybe, actually, I think it was less. I think it was like a $50 million industry. Post-pandemic, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's supposed to grow, you know, by 2030 to be in the tens of billions of dollars. So, I mean, it is, you know, we have to understand that it is, you know, similar to pharmaceutical companies and any of these people, you know, it is an industry, and they do want to make money, right? It's corporatized. So it's a corporatized movement that's preying on maybe impressionable younger adults that may be, you know, experiencing a variety of things, and, you know, they may or may not come out of it or change their mind. I have a friend who transitioned as an adult, and I had a tremendous amount of respect for that person, because I always said it was the path of most resistance.
Right.
It was the most difficult thing for that person to do. It wasn't easy, right? It's a huge step to actually take that, you know, take that leap and make the commitment to actually fully transition, to take the hormones and, you know, surgically go through with it. And very, very difficult. So I had a lot of admiration watching this person actually go through this transition before my very eyes. So like I said, I don't think that anybody has any problems with this happening in the realm of adulthood.
Correct.
Right?
No, yeah, I think the problem is they're lowering their membership age requirements, and they're going too low with it. I think that's where the problem is. Not really so much the organization; it's that they're lowering their membership age limits, and it's too
that's
low.
Encouraging it, right? I mean, I don't like to use the word grooming. I kind of find that word offensive. I don't like it when people say you're groomers, things like that. But I do think that, you know, these are young, impressionable adults. And if you put the idea into their head that, yeah, maybe you might not be a girl, or maybe you're not really a boy, you know, that's going to really imprint on them, because that's the way that children's brains function, right? And they're wildly creative and imaginative as well. So then, you know, they can start to sort of run with this idea that, yeah, maybe I'm not. And again, it's okay if that's, you know, what the children desires and wants. But I think that we're a lot of people are looking at this saying, whoa, let's put reasonable age limits and things like that on, you know, where we can say that children have a right to, you know, irreversibly alter their bodies in a way that may render them, you know, infertile in the future.
Yeah, no, you can decide to remove a part of your body, but you can't drive to the appointment. I think that's a problem. If you're not old enough to drive to the appointment, there should be no appointment, in my opinion. Joe, what do you think about that? Andy's got some personal experience. She has a friend who transitioned bravely, and she has a mother who's standing and openly enjoying her lifestyle. But what you don't hear from Andy is her mom or her friend are targeting children and trying to bring them into the community. And I think that's kind of where the distinction is. If it's with the children, we want none of that. If you want to do something later in life and do what's right for you, I don't think there's a lot of pushback from the service side on that one. Joe, am I wrong, or am I got the temperature?
No, you're dead on. You're dead on. And anyone speaking with any reasonability or rationality is dead on. We have an age of majority. You can't drive a car if you're 14, right? You can't drive down the highway doing 110. You can't take the number 2 jaunt down to Calgary from Edmonton if you're 14 years old. You can't drink. You can't drive. You can't vote. Why are you doing and making life-changing decisions when you're 12, 13, 14, and it's being, okay, you know, for me, it's just too close to the cliff for me, for the moral, ethical cliff for me, because I see the whole thing. And Andy, we have to use the word grooming because that's exactly what it is when you look at it from a psychological and clinical psychological point of view. It is psychologically and mentally grooming mentalities, and that is grooming. And you got to call it out for what it is. It's completely different if someone's 24 years of age and they're exploring their sexuality and they've always had, and they want to go that route. You're absolutely right. As an adult, you're entitled to make any decision you want. And furthermore to that, there's a caveat that if you're going to make a decision such as that, then you're paying for it, not me.
Well, I'm going to jump in on that one because technically I groom my children too, but I groom them towards the church. I groom them towards healthy eating, healthy lifestyle, healthy education. I think the challenge is this grooming word is being used by one side in a derogatory term, and it's, you know, they're using it a lot. But technically speaking, I do groom my children towards God.
That's not grooming. You're raising your children. You are training your children how to be socialized animals on this planet that have the ability to walk upright and perhaps have some cognitive ability to make a decision that's going to make a positive outcome in the world. But when we take a look,
that's grooming?
No, I don't. Okay. I see it as you're following the natural law where you have to raise your children right. There's a reason why in the past we had 12, 14, 16 children, because you knew you were going to lose half or more through famine, disease, tribulation, everything, right? So you've got to have enough of a procreation ahead of you in order for society to survive. This speaks to the greater issue. If this goes to a certain percentile point, then society is completely doomed. We have a hard enough time with our birth rate the way it is today. We're looking at mass immigration trying to solve an economic problem, which is impossible to do if you look at it from a mathematical point of view. And yet here at the same time, we're not helping our citizens live long, fruitful lives. We're actually assisting them in death. We're actually assisting them in destroying their lives through safe supply drugs. And furthermore, we're not even dealing with them on a very simple thing of mental health. And the easiest thing to help with mental health is make sure that people are actively and productively occupied either through work or through effort. And if that's not in the equation, then, you know, it's just a shipwreck waiting to happen. Like you had said, Andy, you know, politically speaking, we all understand that politics is downstream from culture. Now, what's the first water wheel in the stream downstream from culture? The first one is civic politics. So if people, like in this particular city, we've got ourselves a complete left-wing civic municipal government. And then the next wheel well down the stream from culture to civic politics is provincial politics. And then downstream from that is federal politics. So many people are looking at people drinking from the trough of federal politics when they should be getting out and dealing with their city councilors and their educational public school boards. That's where people need to be active, not sitting around talking and hammering away on issues which really they have no impact on. Like myself, sure, I'm a global guy. I'm looking at the OECD, the WEO, all of it. Okay, we're into that. But in reality, does it make a lick of difference on a Sunday morning here in Edmonton? No, not at all. So what does make a difference is exactly what you're doing, Jason, is you're raising your children right. It's exactly what you're doing, Andy. You're raising your children right, and you're making sure that the people in your life are aware of what environment they live in. And I do the same thing. So, you know, the more active we are on the ground, the further we're able to actually move common sense ahead. And again, I'm looking forward to tomorrow where we're really going to talk common sense, right, Jason?
Yeah. So, yeah, tomorrow's going to be a good episode too. Now, Andy, so grooming used to mean, you know, you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your pet, you're taking care of somebody else or something else with your hands. You're proactively doing something in order to change them to what you think they should be. They may agree, they may not. Like your dog may not want ponytails, but you'll still groom it. So I guess where we're going with this term is it's when you proactively put hands on to change something to your vision of what it should be. Now, with that kind of definition, does it still fit? And what's your pushback on the offensiveness of the word?
It does. It doesn't. It doesn't. But I just don't like to see it used so liberally. Like just like, you know, I don't like to see. I think nobody likes to see, you know, certain derogatory terms used, you know, as an umbrella or a blanket to envelop an entire thing. So, you know, to say that the entire, you know, LGBTQ is, you know, full of groomers. No, that's absolutely not correct. Most of it's comprised of very, very normal individuals like my mother, who are, somewhat abhorred at the spectacle that, this, what started out as a genuine human rights movement, has evolved into. So, I don't like to see it applied liberally, to the whole community and things like that, because by and large, the community is fantastic and not comprised, again, of this small, facet of people who are very, very overt about it. And that's okay. I've over, what they would used to say, I don't know if you can say this anymore, but flamers, right? Very, very flaming gay men, and who were very, very proud of that and had a lot of fun with it, and that was fine. But again, I don't think that that was really reflective of the community as a whole and what it's all about. Just like, I don't like them to say, it's pedophiles, they're all pedophiles and things like that. I think that's very, very offensive, and you're not going to win any friends that way. And that's what we really want to do, is we want to try to bring the people who don't agree with the entire gender ideology umbrella back with, and form more allyship, and try to figure out how to move forward and how to reject, I think, or push back against the harmful aspect, which is a small aspect, where there are, predatory, what I would call predatory sexual, people who are involved in the movement, who are genuinely, maybe dangerous to children, or dangerous to women. We have some transsexuals, obviously, who, go into women's prisons and things like that and commit atrocious crimes.
Yep.
So there is that. So it's sort of like, so let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and let's not offend an entire community because it's composed of a bad. I'm more interested in how do we join together and sort of push back against this harmful aspect and get back to where we were a couple of years ago, which I think was a very, very healthy place. I think that there's always going to be homophobia and transphobia. You're not going to eradicate it. But I think that Canada overall was a very, very safe and tolerant and accepting place, of people who were, of all sorts of unions and things like that. But we've seen, a drastic regression the stronger the movement has become, and the more aggressive they've become, and the more bad actors that have latched onto it, trying to use it for their own, what I think are maybe nefarious purposes, right?
No, I hear you on that one. Like taking a word, applying it to a group, and then saying you're all that way, because I'm a Nazi, right? I'm white privileged, and I'm a whole bunch of other labels.
We're all Nazis here, face it.
Right. So we're the recipient of that all the time. And I guess what you're saying here is we don't need to play that way. Let's not look at it that way. And then how do you feel about this big group in the States, Gays Against Groomers? So there's an entire organization from that community who's using that word, groomers, and they're targeting people that are going after specifically the indoctrination, and specifically groups like minor attracted people, or MAP, this whole new group that's kind of starting to grow. So even within that organization, they too are latching onto that word for its derogatory meaning, but they're using it in order to push their message, which is, look, we have a community here of gay people, gay, lesbian, but we are not that. And we call that grooming, and that's what we want to remove from our community. So even within their own community, that fight on that word is still happening too.
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of thing that I'm talking about when I'm talking about allyship is, we need to set sort of reasonable limits on, how people express themselves in public and how people express themselves to children, and how, we, impose ideas and things like that onto, impressionable youth. So, yeah, and again, obviously there are, gay associations and things like that, right, who are coming together, sort of saying, no, this isn't us. This has been somewhat hijacked.
Right.
And bad players will always hijack powerful movements. This isn't new, right? And try to use it for their own purposes. This is what happened to Black Lives Matter, right? I mean, that had the potential probably to be a very, very good positive thing. It turned disastrous because it was hijacked by radicals. what I think are domestic terrorists, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think that we're seeing something very, very similar, is that, there was a very necessary movement that, used to be sort of the Pride movement, and it was necessary to ensure that we had safeguards in place for, all kinds of people in different unions in Canada, and make sure that they were protected legally under our laws. So it's really, really unfortunate to see that it's become this ugly clash. And yeah, we did see some, we're seeing some religious groups scuffle now with these progressives who are pushing very aggressive gender ideology on students. And I view gender ideology more as like a pseudoscience. Like I don't take it everything as being, yes, this is like the last word from the
It's
scientific
fluid.
community. To me, it's more like a theoretical, and if that's the reality that you want to accept, I'm fine with that, right? Like if you want to accept that that's your personal belief in your reality, I'm okay with that, and I'll accept it too, right? That's fine. If you want to say that you're a woman, yeah, under most times I'll accept that, under certain circumstances, right? Like, again, like my friend, I think that you should be putting your money where your mouth is, right?
Mhm.
Go all the way and you transition fully into a woman, right? Do it medically and chemically. You don't just get to put on a dress and call yourself a woman. That's a little bit different, right?
So you want to start setting bars where we actually have some sort of, I don't know, do they have to take a blood test to see if they have enough hormone or something?
No, like I think, the whole problem, and I've talked about this with some people who do, gender critical story hour and things like that. Very, very knowledgeable people. And a lot of this problem occurred when self-ID laws came into effect, because it's like we don't have any good metric of measurements of are you actually transitioning and fully transitioning into another gender, or not. So we have no way to discern one group for another group, right?
Mhm.
That's a huge problem legally, and that's where it's landed us in legal hot water, where we have men transferring to women's institutions and things like that, and going into women's change rooms, and unfortunately, like I said, a couple of bad people are ruining it for an entire massive community of gay people who want nothing to do with that, right? So
Mhm.
it's really, really unfortunate. And like I said, yeah, it's interesting to see the religious scuffles, because religious beliefs are also protected.
Right.
They've got, very explicit charter rights. Their beliefs, which I think is something different than gender beliefs, are also protected. So it's going to maybe come down to, in the future, court. I could see it coming down to court battles as to, and we will find out whose beliefs are better protected, under charter rights. They're both protected groups. And I think that we're going to see increasing backlash, right? I mean, we've seen backlash from our Muslim community. Again, I don't think that just because somebody says something, that the Muslim community is obliged to go against what they believe
Right.
and say, yes, right, I'm going to, you get the option to force your beliefs on me.
Well,
Because
it's not just the Muslim community. I think it's any religious one that speaks up. They all
yeah,
face
or devout Christians, right? Like we see with Save Canada and Joshua Alexander, right?
Right.
So, and like I said, I have hold a little bit of different beliefs probably than they do. They're probably a little bit more extreme, and that they don't believe in transitions. I mean, Billboard Chris, I'm good friends with Chris. We hold a little bit of different positions on this, right? Where he's like, no, I absolutely do not accept that a man maybe might be a woman. So I have a little bit of a different, more, I think, kind viewpoint towards that. I do feel like there are individuals, because like I said, I've met.
Right.
individuals.
Right.
So yeah, but it's kind of like, where do you find middle ground? And it's very, very difficult now. It's become very, very messy to given that there's people have the right to self-identification and change their gender and their identity daily. It's become very, very difficult to root out. And get control of. But anyways, yeah. So yeah, interesting. So I do see there's going to be some court challenges coming up. Obviously, Ottawa is going to be it's going to be a show, I think, when Josh and Chris go there on June 9th. So yeah, but interesting, idea is because most progressives love to sort of latch on to Muslims and things like that. And I feel like they use them sort of as tokens for their political ideas and things like that, right? But now that Muslims are sort of pushing back and saying, well, no, actually, we're not really on board with what you're doing in our schools, and gender and sexuality stuff, right? We're not into that. It's kind of come back to shoot them in the foot. And I think Spencer Fernando wrote a really great article about that. And like I said, they're both protected groups, and I don't see how one group's rights should trump the other group's rights, or why Muslims should be, forced or pushed into believing everything. Anything exactly, right?
Just stop right there. You shouldn't force anybody to believe anything.
Like, I think everybody should have the right to say, no, I reject this idea.
Right.
But you have to do it in a way that's still respectful of them, right? Like, I can say I reject some of these ideas, but you can still have rights and freedoms and be protected legally and things like that, and have the same sort of rights in that manner that I do. Just like people don't have to accept my ideas, right? But it's come to the point where that's no longer good enough. Saying,
right, and that's what I'm going to go to.
Everything, but we can live harmoniously, right? And you live your life, and I'll live my life the way that I want it. We're all seen as equal under the eyes of the law, which is the really, really important thing in my mind, right? It wasn't good enough. Now it's like, no, we got to ram this down your throat, and you have to acknowledge that this is, your reality, which is very, very different than other people's reality.
Right. Now, Joe, I'm going to run to Joe because I got to wrap up. We are over time already. So, Joe, I agree with Andy that it should be an individual's choice whether or not you support anything, whether you have a belief in anything. I do believe that that's an individual right. However, if you don't support certain ideologies or agendas, you don't get the luxury of being neutral on it. You either support it, or you obviously clearly must hate and want them all dead. There is no neutral on some issues and some topics. Do you see it that way? And is that where we kind of need to get this? There needs to be a neutral. We should be allowed to say, I don't support it, and I also don't hate it. That is the same thing at the same time. But the two binary choices we'll be given is either you love it or you hate it, and there is no middle ground. Do you see it the same way? And would neutral or middle ground kind of help this?
Well, thanks for asking an important question. You know me, I always look at things from a very elemental point of view. Now, I ask you this. When has neutral ever done anything for you? If you're going down a hill in neutral, you're more than likely going to lose control. If you're going up a hill in neutral, you're not going up a hill. Neutral is going nowhere.
Well, my question,
you have to have a stand. You have to have a stand on an issue such as this.
Like an atheist, though, to me, it's just like kind of being, like you're Switzerland. Like, hey, that's great that you've got the same rights that I've got. And you've made different life choices, and I have a right to make different life choices. Let's go live our lives together in harmony, right? I don't say that you have to join my rallies and support my ideology, and I'm going to shove it down your throat because that's my belief, and force it upon you and make you teach it to your children, right? I think it's kind of like being an atheist.
It's amazing how this is a binary thing. Either you love or hate. We're not allowed to be fluid on this or have an opinion in between the two.
I love all people, but I don't necessarily like all things people do.
Fair enough, but you certainly don't necessarily hate.
No.
Right, so that's kind of my point here is either I'm told
I can hate the behavior. I can hate the behavior because behaviors have outcome.
Mm-hmm. And that's something I speak about with my wife a lot. It's not the person, it's the action that I'm looking at. And then and not necessarily just the action, but the result of the action, like what came out of it. A child removing her breast, I'm not cool with that. An adult doing whatever they want, you can slice yourself up. But I'm going to have to wrap it up on that. But Andy, what I want to ask you is, Billboard Chris and you, do you think we can get an episode on this subject with the two of you?
Oh yeah, I think definitely. Like I said, he's going to be really, really busy with Ottawa. I'm still on the fence. I would really love to go out there and join him with them. I just don't know if I can swing it right now. But yeah, I'll reach out to him for sure. Yeah, because and I met Billboard Chris after he got the crap beat out of him in Toronto. That's how we actually met. I was like, oh my gosh, what did they do to this poor man, right? He's basically just saying that, he's a dad. I mean, he's just walking around with a sandwich board, right? And yeah, that was when he got his arm broken. So yeah, we can try to swing that. Good
That'd be wonderful.
Like I said, and I've learned so much from Chris about how to, and I'm still learning, is how do you talk about these difficult things that are kind of like nuclear no-go zones, and try to do it in a way that is respectful. And based on solutions, as opposed to just lashing out and making terrible, awful, derogatory blanket statements, which is some of what I'm seeing. And like I say, I never like to see that happen, because we don't want to alienate the very, very good members in the community and all the important work that they have done for human rights. And it was important work.
Absolutely. Anybody that stands up to fight for what they believe in, I have respect for. I don't even have to agree with what they're fighting for. It's just a simple act of getting up and fighting for what you believe in. I think it's something we can respect. But this is going to be an issue that we have to deal with. It's on the table. There's no ignoring this. Doesn't matter what part of the spectrum you're on, sexually or politically. This is an issue that we all have to kind of address. And I think we're doing our best at this point, and there's a lot of work to do. So Andy, thank you so much. I look forward to speaking to you again. Joe, thank you so much. Alberta sure had a lot to say today. I didn't really control this 15 minutes because we didn't have a BC to turn to. But thank you so much. and we're definitely going to do this again. Judging by the chat, people are liking this format.
Interested? Okay, great. Okay, well, goodbye, everybody. And I'm supposed to say happy. What was I supposed to say?
Not supposed to. Happy birthday, Motown, the Calgarian. Oh, the secret's out. Motown, I did reach out to everybody and I asked if they can give you a shout out, because you're a special person to me, and I knew it was your birthday. So there you go, Motown. Happy birthday,
Motown.
Final message for Canada. Final message for Canada. Canada, go out and make a difference in the world today.
And if you can't do that, say happy birthday to Motown.
Exactly.
Everybody.
He's going to be down at Denny's doing his Grand Slam in about a half hour.
Oh, he's going to replay this for his grandchildren and everybody. This episode was for Motown. So Motown, Canada loves you. Okay, bye, everybody. I'm going to wrap up, and I got a small announcement for everybody. Bye, Joe. Bye, Andy. Thank you so much for being here. Well, how was that, folks? Did you like that? Did you like hearing from Canadians across the board? Different opinions? We don't have an echo chamber on this show. We're certainly here to talk and listen. You may hear things we don't like. You may hear me say things you don't like. But that's what debate is. That's what communication is. That's what this is. It's not going to feel good. Life isn't supposed to feel good. It's going to get prickly. You're going to get scratches. You're going to get bumps and bruises. It's going to happen. An adult and a mature mind knows this, and they don't run away when they get one. So I really appreciate everybody's opinion on this one, the point of view, and there's no doubt we're going to be doing stuff like this more, and there's a lot of stuff that came out of this episode. We are running late, but you know what? For Canada, I'm going to stand on guard for thee, and we're going to keep the stream going for just a little bit longer. I do want to let you know about our special guest tomorrow. Originally, it was Donald Best, a police officer who was falsely accused and had to go through a whole bunch of things. He's gone to the next Thursday. And let me show you why. I'll be right back. Join me on Good Morning with Jason as I welcome a very special guest to the show, Maxime Bernier, founder and leader of the People's Party of Canada. Max is preparing to run in the Portage-Lisgar by-election, slated for June 19th. Will he make history and become the first member of his party to claim a seat? Can he rally the support he needs to triumph? Join us Thursday, June 8th, starting bright and early at 6 a.m. Mountain Time, 8 a.m. Eastern, for a stimulating, enlightening conversation with Max. We'll delve into his plans and vision for the future and ask the burning questions Canadians want to know. See you all then. God bless. So that's right. We got Maxime tomorrow. He got back to me yesterday. They had a slot available. It was nothing but running around, getting things done, doing the promo, getting things ready. But yes, we have him for an hour. Well, the show will be starting at 6 a.m., where we will be doing a panel with a whole bunch of people like Gov Corrupt, and some others, where we're going to hash out the questions that I'm going to pose to Maxime. And then we'll have an hour with Maxime. We'll go through those questions and other things. So tomorrow's a very big episode. Come tune in, whether you love him or hate him or neutral. You can still pick up a lot of information about Maxime, and I really think he's here to talk. Chatting with his people, there is zero no-goes, and he's happy to answer all questions. They're familiar with my show. They know my bio. They know that I'm against globalists and all that kind of stuff, and there's no limitations. So I'm really looking forward to that. Make sure you tune in, and if we're lucky and he can run long, we will run long, because once we got Maxime in front of you, we're going to ask him the questions. So think about it tonight. What do you want to hear? What do you want to ask? Come back tomorrow, first hour of the show, chat, guests, panels. We're all going to talk about what we're going to talk to Max about, and then we'll have him on. So thank you all very much. Without you, this show wouldn't happen. Without you, Maxime, and others will say yes. I have some other special guests that I'm already talking to. We got a senator coming on to talk about C11 and C21. I actually asked the senator to come explain it to us. He said yes. He's checking his schedule. From the horse's mouth, they voted. We'll see why. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, like, you do all this stuff. Most definitely share this with your friends. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It was fun for me, and I definitely like doing these things. So stay tuned for tomorrow, and next Wednesday, you're going to do the same thing here, but just in the afternoon. Thank you all very much. It was a long show, but completely worth it. And remember, I love you all, and God bless.